Koppel, host of the Time for Coffee podcast, where you get firsthand career advice into the jobs and industries that interest you the most. And before we start today's show, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you haven't already, I'd be incredibly grateful if you give us a rating and a review on iTunes. And if you're like me, you need to do it now because you'll forget later and because it's the best way to help others who may be in search of career advice to find this free resource. So press pause if you haven't done it and do it right now. I'll wait. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome to another episode of T4C. If you're interested in the field of education or in becoming a career coach and counseling students who want to go to college, then this is the episode for you. Because my next guest is the founder and head of talent at the world's largest college admissions counseling company, who is not only an entrepreneur, but he's also incredibly knowledgeable about the education counseling and coaching space. And he's going to be sharing 2 decades of wisdom about how to break into this profession. But before I introduce you to Kevin McMullin, I want to make sure you've signed up for the Java Junkies Journal. That's T4C's weekly newsletter that comes out on Mondays and gives you a peek into the episodes and the professionals we're going to be featuring that week. And it is super easy to do. Just head over to the Time for Coffee website at time4coffee.org, and the sign-up box is right there on the home page. Now, my Java lovers, please grab a mug and take a chug of your favorite caffeinated brew, because it's time for another caffeinated career conversation. And my guest is Kevin McMullin, the founder and head of talent at Collegewise, the world's largest college admissions counseling company. Kevin founded Collegewise in Irvine, California, way back in 1999, using his last paycheck from his last job. He started out that fall working with just 9 students at their kitchen tables to help them find the right colleges and to complete their applications. Well, just 1 year later, over 100 families were enrolled in the Collegewise program. And fortunately, Kevin was no longer the only counselor. I certainly hope not, because Kevin probably wouldn't still be with us today if that were the case. A super popular public speaker, Kevin has given over 500 presentations to discuss college admissions planning, employee engagement, and small business success. A graduate of UC Irvine with a double major in English and history. And because of that, Kevin believes he ended up answering the question I'm guessing many of you who are in college answer right now as students. So what will you do with those majors? And he claims he answered that about 783 times. Kevin also has a college admissions counseling certificate from UCLA. And he's also co-author of the book, If the U Fits, and that's the letter U, expert advice on finding the right college and getting accepted. And until recently, Kevin was writing at least one entry every day on the Collegewise blog, no doubt putting that English major to good use. Kevin, welcome to Time for Coffee. Are you caffeinated out there in Seattle and ready to go?
I'm caffeinated and excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So are you a Starbucks lover, Pete's? What do you brew in your family?
We brew coffee from the independent coffee shop right down the street, and there are many, many of those in Seattle, but I am an enthusiastic coffee drinker of whatever kind happens to be closest to me.
Fair enough. A man after my own heart. So let's dive into the 10 espresso shots. The first one being, what entry-level jobs, Kevin, are available to young people who want to break into the college counseling, the college coaching field?
The most popular and most available one would be to work in the admissions office of a college. They love to hire recent college grads, and oftentimes it's their own students who interned as undergraduates who go into those roles.
And at Collegewise, what would an entry-level job be?
Well, we don't have a lot of entry-level jobs for people that don't have any experience in the field. We often will give part-time work to people that are looking to gain experience, where they might come and work as an assistant counselor. They work as sort of an administrative assistant to our counselors who are working with a caseload of students.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. So, Kevin, what is a useful hard and soft skill or skills that you look for in the young counselors that you hire at Collegewise?
There are three soft skills that we look for from everyone. One is the ability to communicate clearly and effectively, particularly in writing. We require a personalized cover letter from every applicant that we interview. If you send us a recycled cover letter that you sent to dozens of other companies, that sends a message to us that you're not particularly interested in this job. And so we think that evidence of clear thinking comes from clear writing. So we look to that. We also look to someone who is astute, who can read people and situations effectively. We think that's really important for a counselor that's going to be working with students and parents. And we look for evidence of someone who takes initiative in the roles at their past jobs or in the extracurricular activities they participated in college, someone who came up with ideas, who launched projects, who tried things that might not work, and can point back to those and say, that's something that happened because of me, because I took the initiative and didn't just wait to be told what to do.
Gotcha. And I actually think personally that writing clearly is a hard skill, but are there any other hard skills that you look for?
Well, a hard skill that comes from experience in this field is, it's more knowledge than it is skill, but is a knowledge of various colleges and the requirements within those colleges. I mean, someone that has that information readily accessible and can translate it clearly and effectively to the student that they're trying to advise. I would call that a useful hard skill that takes time for someone to learn and practice.
No doubt. What about someone's major? Is it a deciding factor to get into your profession? In other words, if they haven't studied coaching or some kind of counseling, is it a deal breaker?
As an undergraduate, the major is not really a deciding factor at all for our company and our line of work. We're looking more for the engagement that someone showed inside and even more importantly, outside of the classroom. Now, if they look to take this profession outside of a private company like ours and they want to go into a school setting, then they are going to need a graduate degree. But for us, no, the major really has very little, if any, impact.
Great. And actually, that leads me to my next question. How important is it to have a grad school degree? And if so, what are the most useful ones to have, Kevin?
Well, again, for our company, it's not particularly useful. It's something that we would pay attention to because it's evidence of someone who's got a passion and an interest in this particular career. But for someone that wants to be a school counselor, and I differentiate that, that's someone that's working in a school setting rather than a company setting like ours. And the reason that's so important and a big distinction between a school counselor and a private college counselor like us, private college counselor talks only with students about the process of applying and getting accepted to college. Where a school counselor, who I believe has a much more difficult job than we do, they have to talk about that, but they also have to deal with students who are suffering from emotional issues. They might be someone who's having a problem at home, someone who has an eating disorder, even some serious legal issues, like someone that's being abused. The school counselor has training to effectively handle those situations, and that's not something that we do in our line of work at our company.
Got it. And I just want to say, you dropped out a little bit. We're doing this interview over Skype just to let our listeners know and just to make sure that everybody could hear you. You said which types of graduate degrees are most useful to have if someone wanted to work in a school setting?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's counseling, psychological counseling, or school counseling. Depending on the program you choose, different schools have different offerings.
Okay, fair enough. Kevin, what about life experiences? You mentioned how at Collegewise, often it is the experiences outside the classroom that you're most interested in. So what kind of life experiences are most useful for someone who's starting out in this field?
I think if you've worked in any capacity where someone has looked to you for guidance or assistance trying to get wherever they're trying to go, that's a useful life experience. So that might be someone who's worked as a tutor, someone who taught summer school classes, someone who's worked even as an intramural coach in college, someone who has put on workshops for college students about how to be successful in college. Anyone that has put themselves in a situation where they've said, this work isn't just about me and making myself successful, it's about helping other people be successful. That means that every day you're going to be learning the kind of skills that are invaluable when you're doing the kind of work that we're doing here.
Excellent. So, speaking of the work that you're doing at Collegewise, what is the best part for you, Kevin, of being in this profession?
Well, the best part, kind of just alluded to it, is that we get to be part of watching students and even our fellow co-workers chase their potential. And, that's a privilege to get to do that every day. That, when a student comes to us and says, I've worked hard in high school, I've got some goals about where I'd like to go, I might like some help getting there, finding the right schools for me, making sure I present myself effectively. That's a thrill to watch that happen, especially when they get good news. And we get to be part of that. And we get to hear from them when they go off to their various colleges about their experiences. And we get to do the same thing with our coworkers, with the training that we put on and the professional development. So I think really the best part is anytime you get to watch people grow, develop, learn, and be excited about that process, that's a pretty great gig, and we really enjoy it.
Absolutely. It sounds awesome. So as you and I know, because we've got a few more miles on our odometer than our listeners do, every job and every career has its ups and downs. So what is the part for you as the founder right now and the head of talent at Collegewise? What is the part of that job that sucks the most?
Yeah, that's an easy one. That's the dejection that comes with good people who've worked hard when they are told no. Not every student gets accepted to their dream college. We can't give a job to every person who applies here. Not every Collegewise employee can necessarily have the promotion that they want. And, watching that disappointment is tough, especially when the person who's hearing it has worked hard. Maybe they've even done everything right, but there just aren't enough of those opportunities to go around. That's difficult. It's part of the job, and it's part of the job that you have to accept, and it gives you an opportunity to help those people through that. But those are always hard days when you're facing that alongside those people.
Oh, absolutely. So 3 final espresso shots, Kevin. What is the best career advice you've ever gotten?
Don't say, that's not my job. Be the person who says, when you work at the coffee shop and the garbage is overflowing, be the person who says, that trash needs to be taken out. I'm going to do that. Be the person who says, I see something that needs to get done. I don't worry whether or not it's technically my job. I'm just going to take care of it. If you can make a habit of doing that, you're always going to have a good job and you're always going to be needed at work.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And I laughed because I have heard people say that. And it's one of those, what are you thinking? Oh my God. You are, you can almost write the end of their career for them. Okay, 2 final espresso shots. What movies, if any, or Netflix, Hulu, Amazon shows, or books do you think accurately depict this profession?
I cannot think of a single movie, Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon show that accurately depicts it. In fact, it's kind of a running joke in our profession and with school counselors that any movie about kids trying to get into college and the people that help them get there, inevitably it's not accurate, but it's usually sort of played almost a comedic effect. There are various books that have explored this profession, and it's more about the process of students trying to get into college, but that's really more about what the students are doing than what we're doing. Although one particularly good book is called The Gatekeepers. course. If you want to learn a little bit about what it's like to be a college admissions officer, that will show you a lot about the process from the other side of the desk that students don't usually get to see.
Okay, wonderful. We will make sure to include a link to that in show notes. Final espresso shot. What would Java junkies be surprised to learn about your profession?
Well, for better or for worse, private college counseling, there is no required certification. And that's always been sort of surprising to me that you need a license if you want to go cut somebody's hair, but you don't need a license if you want to advise somebody about how to get into college. So I think it's important when families are making a choice about working with someone, if you make that choice, that you can see some experience and you can actually hear from people who work with that person. And I think another thing that surprises a lot of people is about the admissions process, that college admissions officers are much happier when they get to admit people than they are when they have to say no. I think the fact that the process is so competitive, a lot of people assume that the people on the other side of that desk are ruthless and that there isn't a lot of heart in what they're doing. And that's a profession that's staffed by caring professionals that really want to find a reason to admit kids, even when they're working at the most selective colleges.
Well, that is great to hear. And for our listeners, if they want to learn more about what Kevin does and did when he founded Collegewise and now is the head of talent, and his insights and tips and expertise, check out show notes for this episode for the main Time for Coffee interview that I've done with Kevin. And that is where you can hear more about Collegewise and learn more about the process of getting into college. Kevin is the co-author of the book, If the U Fits, Expert Advice on Finding the Right College and Getting Accepted. Kevin, thank you so much for making time for coffee today with me and the Time for Coffee community. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of T4C. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching services for confused college students and recent grads, feel free to check out the Time for Coffee website under the coaching tab at time4coffee.org or text me at 202-236-5712. That's 202-236-5712.